All right, I want to talk tax conversion strategies here. Now, we're going to assume that we have a $500,000 IRA. And in this example, we're going to assume that we have a 65-year-old. Could be married, could be single, doesn't matter, but we got a 65-year-old. If they're married, we're going to assume they're both age 65, okay? So my friends, Marty Ruby at Stonewood Financial, he put together some numbers behind this. He's an actuary. He does a great job. So I'm going to use some of his numbers and information here to kind of walk through the power of a potential conversion strategy for you. So as we look at this here, we're going to have a $500,000 IRA. Now, I'm not saying that this is the right breakdown, but this is what we're going to use today. We're going to say of that $500,000 IRA that we have 60% of it in mutual funds and stocks. And the other 40% is in bonds or some type of safer instrument. And we're going to assume that we have a 6% rate of return on those stocks and mutual funds and a 3.5% rate of return on those bonds. So that nets a 5% rate of return as we look at that. So we're going to say on this $500,000 IRA that every single year it's going to keep growing at 5%. We obviously know that's unrealistic. Some years are higher, some years are lower, but we're going to assume that it goes up at 5%. Now, if you're age 65 and you have an IRA, what's going to happen is once you hit age 72, assuming that you turned 70 and a half after January 1st of 2020, that makes your required minimum distribution age, which a required minimum distribution is just in essence, the federal government says once you hit that particular age, you have to start pulling out of taxable accounts such as IRAs, 401ks, SEP-Simples, KIOs, things of that nature. So as we look up here from age 72 to 90, when we have to start taking those required minimum distributions, we're going to assume that you pull that money out and that you say, hey, you know what, I'm only pulling it out because I don't want to pay the penalty imposed by the government for not pulling the correct amount out. So you're pulling that money out and you say, I don't need it, I want to reinvest it somewhere. Now we know checking savings rates aren't fantastic right now, so what we want to do is we want to reinvest it somewhere else. So from age 72 to age 90, we're going to assume that we pull out those required minimum distributions and then we take those and we reinvest them. Now let's face it here, over here we were getting a 5% rate of return, but now we are a little bit older, about 7 years older in this example. So now we're going to assume that when we pull that money out, it sits in your checking, we want to reinvest that, and we're going to reinvest it somewhere to get 4%. Okay, we're not near as risky as what we were, but we're going to earn 4% on that reinvested money. And then at age 90, we're going to pass away. So those are our basic assumptions. So as we look at this and we walk through it, if we assume that we have a 25% tax rate, so potentially 20 federal, 5 state, or whatever combination you want to go on there, if we look and we just say, okay, well, let's just break it down one by one, and we go for this $500,000 IRA money. That $500,000, if we just pull our RMDs out from age 72 to age 90, we're going to end up paying $151,430 just on the RMD, just on the withdrawal, just on the RMD. Then, if we take that money and we take that RMD that we pulled out and we reinvested that RMD and we earn that 4% rate of return on that reinvested money, because you have to pay taxes on the growth of that, that's another $64,724 just on the reinvested RMD. And then if you pass away at age 90, assuming beneficiaries are in the same tax rate at that 25% and they want to net that account out to zero, you in essence would have paid another $100,641 in taxes to net that account out to zero. So on that $500,000 investment, that $500,000 IRA, assuming that you just pull it out exactly as I outlined there, you would have to end up paying $316,795 on that $500,000 IRA just by pulling it out typically the normal way. And I know there's a lot of you out there that would say, hey, you know what? That's me. Didn't know this strategy. Okay, well, maybe I'm stuck in that way. But what if we could do it differently? What if there's a different strategy? What if there's another way to pull your money out of IRAs that might be more beneficial and might be more beneficial in regards to taxes? So let's take a look at that. So as we look, we're going to get rid of these two sides and we're going to say, what if we had another alternative? So what if that other alternative is over here the money is growing, it's growing, oh, grab the wrong one here. Over here it's growing tax deferred, okay? But what if we wanted to move it over on this side of the equation and what if we wanted to move it to a spot that grew tax tax-free. And what if we wanted to have the $500,000 IRA over on this side? Now, you have to ask yourself, would I want to do that all at once? No, absolutely not, because if you did that, that would spike your tax rate up. Doesn't make a lot of sense to do that, because the whole point is we're trying to save you on taxes. But what if we did this over a period of years? What if you took this and you did it over a period of years, and you moved it from the tax-deferred side or taxable side as you pull it out over to this tax-free side? Now, there's only one thing that you can do to move it from this side to this side of the equation. Does anybody know? Well, that one thing is you have to pay taxes. So to get it from here to over here, you have to pay taxes. And once again, we don't want to do that all at once. We would rather do that over a period of years. So if we did that over 5 years, and we did $100,000 a year, every year for 5 years, and that was at a 25% tax rate, that is $25,000 a year, right? So if we take that $25,000 times 5 years, that's $125,000 that you end up having to pay in taxes, assuming a 25% tax rate. Now, what did we have to pay before in scenario 1? We had to end up paying $316,000. Now we have to pay $125,000. Which one would you rather have? I don't know about you, but I'd rather have more money back in my pocket. Now, that's not just it. There's other factors to consider. So let's think about this. What if we just left it there? You might say, Brett, I don't want to do that. I'm just a creature of doing the same thing, creature of habit, just keep doing the same thing over and over again. I just want to leave it there. That seems like a lot of work to take and figure that out and get it moved. Okay, well, by doing that, you're saying you're okay with potentially paying higher taxes based on that first example. But the other thing is, right now, tax rates, historically speaking, are very, very low. So they're at 10, 12, 22, 24%. It very easily could go up quite a bit. We just had a big stimulus that injected a whole bunch of money in that might eventually end up forcing us to raise our taxes down the road, potentially additional increased inflation. But with all that said, if you just leave it here, what if the tax rate does go from 10 to potentially 20% or 12% potentially to 24%? What if it doubles? I'm not going to say that it is, but what if it does? So if it doubles, this $500,000 IRA, in essence, on the money that you have to pull out, what did it do? It, in essence, forced that money now to spend like about half of what it was worth before. Half. You've worked so incredibly hard for this all your life to get this amount of money, to have roughly half of it go just like that, just because taxes raised, something that is totally out of your control. But taxes raised, now you lose half of it just like that overnight. That is a bad feeling. That's kind of like a punch to the stomach. That's just as bad as a 50% stock market loss if they do end up raising taxes and things like that moving forward. Not to say that it would happen, but it could potentially happen. However, let's just say, no, that's a big difference. I never really thought about that, hadn't gone into that much. But what if you took and you moved it over here? And if you did this over 5 years, right? By the time you did it over 5 years, you're now what? You're age 70, right? And now you have all 500,000 over here. Now, of course, this is assuming no growth in this very simple, simplistic example as we look at it. But if you move it all over to this side, now you get to age 72. How much do you have to pull out of that required minimum distribution? Nothing, right? Because you already took and you already paid all the taxes to get it over to that side of the equation. So you mean to tell me you don't have to pull any money out at age 72 for your RMDs? That is 100% correct. What if you hit age 74 or 75? Do you have to pull any money out then? No, absolutely not. If you took and you move this and this was a Roth IRA over on this side of the equation. So you could have that keep growing and accumulating. You get to decide, it's up to you rather than the federal government telling you how much you have to pull out and how often. Now you can actually determine how much you want to pull and how often. And also if you leave it to your beneficiaries, guess what? That's tax-free as well to your beneficiaries. So use it for yourself. Pass it on one way or the other. That might be a very good way to save a lot of tax money that otherwise would be paid out over a long duration of time. Obviously, you'd be paying a little bit more taxes now comparatively to later, but that could be a very good tool for you to use moving forward. If you like that, if that makes sense, if that's a tool that you think you might want to utilize or a strategy that you might want to utilize, feel free to click on the link and schedule a 15-minute strategy session.